Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the backstory. If you are new here, kindly hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below so that you can be notified when we post a new video. Now ladies and gentlemen, when President Ruto was elected, so many KWANZA politicians praised him and said that he was going to transform Kenya the way the third president of the Republic of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, did. And to them, he was like this new savior who was going to transform the country like never seen before.
President Ruto will take Kenya very far, just like the late President Mwai Kibaki, who met Kenya at zero. And in 10 years, President Kibaki left Kenya in a very good place. Kwa hiyo msiwe na wasiwasi. Msiwe na wasiwasi. Na mimi najua wakati rais atakuja kuomba kura yake ya msimu wa pili, pamoja na wabunge na magovernors na deputy president wetu, we will have a story to tell and will account for the 5 years that we'll have spent.
Wajana mambo ya makelele hapa na pale. Ukipea Ruto time na support ya wananchi wa Kenya, Ruto is going to deliver. Watu wanaongea wakisema Kibaki alideliver. Huyu Ruto atadeliver hata zaidi ya kuliko Kibaki mara 5 ama mara 10. Wa Kenya mupe time and support na muone.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, those are KWANZA MPs talking and heaping praise on William Ruto. William Ruto himself on several occasions has said and has told Kenyans that he will not let Kenya down and that is going to follow in the footsteps of Mwai Kibaki.
Niliwaeleza ya kwamba kazi yetu ya kwanza ni kudhibiti uchumi wa taifa letu, to stabilize the economy of our country. Kwa sababu tulikuwa pahali hatari sana. Mahali madeni ilikuwa nyingi na mpango wa vile tutayasuluhisha hatukuwa nayo kikamilifu. Napenda kuwaeleza ya kwamba we have stabilized the economy of the Republic of Kenya. Tumehakikisha ya kwamba mambo ya kukopa madeni kulia, kushoto, mbele na nyuma na juu na chini tumekomesha. Katika budget tuliyopeleka bunge, huyu nilimwambia huyu kijana Ndindi Nyoro, kwa sababu yeye ndio chairman wetu wa budget. Nikamwambia hakuna budget itaenda kupelekwa bunge ya madeni. Tukaondoa madeni karibu nusu trilioni ambayo ilikuwa imewekwa huko, tukaondoa. Tukasema we must build this country on the solid foundation, not on the foundation of debt. Na tumedhibiti uchumi sasa. Tumesema we are building our country on the solid foundation of our economy built around the taxes we raise. Na tuko na mwalimu ambaye ametufundisha hii kazi. Huyo mwalimu ni mtu ambaye alitoka na huku Nyeri. Mnajua mzee Kibaki, wakati alichukua usukani kama rais, tulikuwa tunakusanya bilioni 200 kama taifa. Akatuambia tulipe ushuru. Nyinyi mlisikia, nyinyi mnajua. Lipa kodi. Hiyo ndio ilikuwa lugha ya mzee Kibaki. Akatusukuma wakati alikuwa anaondoka baada ya miaka 10. Tumetoka 200 billion, tumefika 1 trillion. Tumeongeza ushuru yetu 5 times wakati wa mzee Kibaki. Nyinyi mnanielewa? Sasa mnafikiri mimi nitakosea nisifuate hapo kwa mzee Kibaki mwenye alitufundisha nchi inajengwa na kodi? Nchi inajengwa na ushuru, haijengwi na madeni.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is William Ruto for you. And in that statement, he said very well that his teacher is former President Mwai Kibaki, and he will not let him down. So today we want to look at some of the areas that we want to compare Ruto's presidency and former President Mwai Kibaki's presidency and draw parallels so that at least we can see where they meet or where they draw close relationships. And I also want to get your comments in the video down below on what you think. Do you think William Ruto comes close to Mwai Kibaki in terms of performance, economic performance, political performance, and all that, all areas that you think they are similar or they are different? If you have any feedback, you can send it or you can write it in the comments down below so that we can engage more. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to look at William Ruto's presidency since he came in. And one area that first we want to look at is appointments in terms of cabinet. You know, when Kibaki came in, Kibaki looked at Kenya in terms of one whole unit. And for Kibaki to appoint you into position, he looked at your professional background. If you look at the first cabinet that Kibaki appointed, it was full of professionals. I want to read to you some of the names of the professionals who are in Kibaki's cabinet and then compare with the Ruto's current cabinet secretaries. The vice president in the office of Provincial Administration and Internal Security was Dr. Chris Murungaro. We had Vice President was Mudi Awori. Mudi Awori was Minister of State in the office of the Vice President. We had Minister for Energy Ochila Ayako. Kalonzo Musyoka was Foreign Affairs. Raila Odinga, Public Works and Housing. Charity Ngilo was Minister for Health. Musikari Kombo, Minister for Regional Development. Minister for Planning and National Development was Professor Anyang' Nyong'o. Minister for Agriculture, Kipruto Arap Kirwa. Minister for Education, Science and Technology, Professor George Saitoti. Minister for Transport, John Michuki. Minister for Water Resources, Martha Karua. Finance, David Miraria. Information and Tourism, Raphael Tuju. Minister for Trade and Industry, Mukisa Kitui. Amos Kimunya. Dr. Newton Kulundu was for Environment, Mwakwere, Peter Ndwiga, and all that. Attorney General then was Amos Wako. So look at that cabinet then and compare with the cabinet that we have right now. Can you draw any parallels? Are they coming any closer to each other? Because in Kibaki's government, Kibaki valued professionalism. He didn't go for politicians per se in his cabinet. Even though during his tenure, politicians were allowed to be ministers or cabinet secretaries. But in the current constitution, we are supposed to appoint professionals to head cabinet positions, which Ruto has gone against. He's appointed more politicians into office than professionals. So that is one area. If you look at the transformation that happened in Kibaki's government, it was led by none other than Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who was the minister then for Planning and National Development. Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, together with Professor Kimani, are the guys who came up with the transformative agenda for Mwai Kibaki. They're the guys who are behind the Vision 2030 and all that. So that cabinet was so rich that I would want to imagine the kind of discussions that they used to have in that cabinet. compared to the current cabinet that Ruto has. So if you have any feedback, you can comment on the video down below and tell us. Then secondly, we are going to look at, after the appointment, we're going to look at revenue collection, which is a pet project for William Ruto. He's talked about it, even in the previous video, he talked about raising tax collection. Yeah, it's true that former President Kibaki is the one who told Kenyans that we can sustain our economy by ourselves through raising our taxes. But one difference is Kibaki never overtaxed Kenyans. What he did was he widened the tax base, whereby so many people were involved in the productive sectors of the economy. Guys were able to borrow money, guys were able to set up businesses, and as a result, there were so many entities or so many people to tax, and the government, as a result, raised a lot of revenue. The difference with Ruto's is that Ruto has increased taxes, whereby Kenyans are overtaxed. And then the second issue that Kibaki also did was after getting more money through taxation, after broadening the tax base, he used that money for development. That money was used for developing Kenya to a point that at some point Kenya never depended on IMF and World Bank to do development, for recurrent expenditure and for development expenditure, until IMF and World Bank were worried about, came and applauded the former president on the kind of work that he was doing. Kibaki took us out of borrowing from IMF and World Bank, and then we looked east. We went to China, where we borrowed money from the Chinese firms, and that money was used for infrastructural development. For the first time, road networks in Kenya, Thika Road, and all other road networks in Kenya started working. When Kibaki came in is when we started embracing free primary education. And this free primary education, he made sure that it was put under the treasury. So that treasury managed the funds that were to be channeled to for free primary education. So compare this with Ruto's regime. And Ruto came in, and the first thing he started doing was blaming the previous regime. Remember, Kibaki also came in after Moi. And when he came in, our revenue we were raising close to around 200 billion in a year. But Kibaki made sure that by the time he was leaving, Kenyans were able to raise close to 800 billion. And at no time did you hear Kibaki kind of blame the previous regime, which was Moi's regime. Kibaki went down to work, worked for Kenyans until the time that he retired. But here is a case where President Ruto's regime is blaming, instead of getting down to work, they are blaming the previous regime. How is that helping Kenyans? Then secondly, however much is taxing Kenyans, Ruto's regime is kind of extravagant in the way they're spending their money. Look at the cabinet secretaries. Look at guys going to functions with choppers. Cabinet secretaries going to functions with choppers. While during Kibaki's era, I remember there was a time Kibaki ordered that cabinet ministers were to use vehicles whose CCs were not more than 2,000. And I remember Uhuru Kenyatta then was the finance minister. And cabinet ministers were ordered to use not more than 2 vehicles, 2 official government vehicles. And they were not to be more than, their capacity was not to be more than 2,000 cc. So compare and contrast with the current regime. Look at the guys who are doing choppers. The vice president cannot go anywhere in Kenya without a chopper. He's always on a chopper. Cabinet ministers go attending funerals in choppers. And all this comes back to Kenyans who foot this bill. So however much is raising the taxes, but the expenditure part of it is wanting. So Kibaki raised revenue and was very economical in how he was spending Kenyans' money. Now, the third area that I want us to look at is the political angle to all this. President Kibaki was very good at matters to do with economics and governance, but people say he was not good in matters to do with politics. And at no time did you see the former president Kibaki attending rallies on top of vehicles, attending rallies every now and then. His work was State House to Arambe House, and most of the time when there was a serious matter, that is when you would see former President Mwai Kibaki attending or addressing a press conference. Most of the time it was at Harambee House and sometimes at State House, Nairobi. Compare that to Ruto's regime. Ruto, like every week or on a daily basis, is out there on top of vehicles, attending rallies and all that. So sometimes you'd ask, at what time is President Ruto working for Kenyans? We have like 5 years before, 3 to 4 years before we start politicking. Why can't he settle down and work? Then 2 years to election, you can start politicking. Then the third issue was matters to do with traveling outside the country. Even though so many people, some people would tell you that, okay, Kibaki, when he came in, he wasn't feeling well, he was on crutches, and then he could not travel outside the country for long. But if you compare how many trips he made in his 10 years of service compared to what President Ruto has done so far, Kibaki did almost around 10 to 15 trips to outside the country. President Ruto right now has done over 40-something trips. And at what expense? What are we getting in return? Let's go to another issue, which is matters to do with religion. Kibaki was a staunch Christian, a Catholic. But he was a staunch Catholic. Ruto is also a staunch Christian as well. But Kibaki never used the podium to address the nation. He never used the church podium to address any national matter or to politic. In fact, you're told, oh, if you lived during Kibaki's era, Kibaki would go to church, and at no time would you even hear the priests of the day recognizing the presence of the president. You'd just know because of the commotions here and there, security guys moving guys left and right. But Kibaki would walk in, sit down, listen to the preachings, and then later just leave and go home peacefully. Compare that to Ruto's current system, where he attends church services, but he will use that same podium to politic and to address matters to do with governance in the same podium, church podium. So there are a lot of parallels when it comes to matters to do with governance, matters to do with the finance, matters to do with politics, religion. To me, I think however much Ruto would want to follow in the footsteps of former President Kibaki, but I think he still has a lot of work to do. He still has a lot of things to learn from the former president I know he served in his cabinet as the Minister for Agriculture, but it seems like he never learned so much out of the former president. I don't know what you think, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any contrary opinion or if you agree, you can send us your feedback on the comments video down below so that we can also engage more in this podcast. That is all from me today, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, goodbye.